suicide bombers, shady government conspiracies, and rogue agents. We're not talking about every spy show made in America in the last 20 years. This is The Division 2. The Division 2 is a 2019 online tactical looter shooter. It was developed by Massive Entertainment and published by Ubisoft. It's a direct sequel to the 2016 game The Division. Now, if you guys remember, the first Division game had a massive launch, but the player numbers dwindled down pretty quickly. And like many Ubisoft games before it and since then, it took about a year to get the formula right and for the players to really start enjoying it and to start bringing in more new players. So is The Division 2 going to fall into that same trap? Let's find out. So as you guys know, when I talk about games, I talk about the good, the bad, then I give you my score. That being said, let's start with The Division 2 goodness. Not gonna lie, I thought the single player campaign was pretty damn fun. There's a lot of variety to be found in Washington, from the streets and swamps to the forest and museums. The side stories give you even further mission variety and different things to look at. The gunplay is extremely fun. The feedback, the sound, the hit indicators, and seeing the bad guys trip or drop from impacts or headshots just feels awesome. The different weapon types are great. They have varying mechanics and they all have a unique feel from one another. Simply put, shooting people just feels kick-ass in this game. And there's a ton of different ways to shoot people, be it grenade launchers, crossbows, sniper rifles, machine guns, submachine guns, light machine guns, pistols. It's all in there, and it all feels great. And all those different kinds of guns come in handy with all the different enemy types you're going to come across. You've got your melee grunts, you've got suicide bombers, you've got CQB submachine gun specialists, you've got sharpshooters, grenade launcher wielding bad guys, shield carriers, drone operators, heavy weapons carrying armored up sub-bosses, and named bosses, just to name a few. The AI is fairly clever for a looter shooter and will mix up enemy types and tactics to try to take you out. They may flank you, they may charge you, they may force you out of cover with gas or even a robot. And the way that you react to those enemies and their behaviors will vary as well, especially if you're playing solo. I actually played the game solo for most of the entire campaign, but I did jump into the co-op stuff a bunch of times just to see how it feels to play with people. It was definitely more fun, it was more aggressive, you have a lot more bad guys to deal with, you have a lot more waves of them coming in, and it just moves faster. When I played certain levels on my own and then tried them again with other players in co-op mode, it was night and day. Some of these levels took me 45 minutes to an hour to get through on my own, and I flew through them in about 5 or 10 minutes with the other people. The bad guys in the game, your character, and your guns all have unique talents, buffs, and nerfs which will affect combat. And some of them are pretty subtle, but they can still make a huge difference in the way that combat plays out. On top of that, once you clear the campaign and hit level 30, you can unlock specializations with unique traits and weapons, both of which can drastically change and improve your character's build. You get a crossbow, you can get a grenade launcher, you can get a sniper rifle, and of course all of the traits that will go along with that type of weapon. Speaking of weapons, you'll find a ton of sweet guns, gear, and clothing scattered all around the map. Knee pads, backpacks, gloves, chest armor, and much, much more all give your character a different look, and again, varying strengths and weaknesses. You can even find dyes for both the gear and the weapons, which help you stand out further from other players you come across. So you might have the same gun, the same backpack, knee pads, whatever, but the other player might have, blue camo, and then you've got pink on. And yes, I said pink. I love to put pink and purple and turquoise and kind of girly fluorescent colors on my player. I love running through a map with people or against people, armed to the teeth, and my character is just super badass. But I have them looking really fun, like I'm not taking it seriously. But that's not the case, of course. And in addition to the guns and the gear, you'll find plenty of outfits, hats, glasses, pants, shorts, shoes, and the like that you can wear. So you can have your player fully kitted out in military gear, or you can do like I did and dress how you would in real life. Shorts, sneakers, and a t-shirt. So basically the 40-year-old white dad starter kit. But your guns and your gear aren't the only thing that change over time. As you progress through the campaign and you finish certain missions and you meet certain benchmarks, these allied compounds that you come across will also be upgraded. These upgrades can help you as a player, so when you return to these compounds that you find around the map, not only can you upgrade your stuff, sell things, repair things, but you get a lot of cool stuff to look at that changed from the start of that compound up until now. So when you went to that compound, there might not have been much to it, but now they have like a movie theater, and they have this huge gardening complex, or they have a hydroponic system. There's so much stuff that can happen in these compounds, and it's a nice representation of your progress through the game. And the compounds aren't the only things that are upgraded when you finish missions. Certain missions will also reward you with blueprints for attachments for your weapons. Now these attachments are bigger magazines, or magazines that give you faster reload times. You get suppressors, you get better sights for your weapons. There are quite a few that you can get, and with the right combination of them, you can really bolster the power and accuracy of your guns. The game world looks so damn pretty. Exploration is fun, and running around checking it out just feels great. The game actually launched in a pretty decent state. I'd say the best state of any looter shooter since Borderlands 2. The weather effects are dynamic and gorgeous. They do change up the gameplay and affect your enemy's awareness. Same goes with the night and day cycle. I also dug seeing famous parts of DC vandalized or destroyed or sealed up, or just falling victim to the ravages of time. It gives the whole game world a really lived-in feel. It's just a really immersive atmosphere, and it helps when you're running through the streets fighting bad guys, or you just hear the ambient sounds of like the birds and the breeze and everything else. But that quiet can change in an instant. You'll have a bunch of guys come out in front of you that are on a patrol. You have to jump into cover and get to fighting. And that cover system does work great, as does the armor destruction system and the weak spots on the enemies. And all three of these things work together brilliantly. Something else that works brilliantly is the sound design. It's truly kick-ass. You have all these echoes, you have sound occlusion, things change with your environment, this great reverb. All of the weapons sounds fantastic, and that's because they recorded actual weapons.
Get the fuck away from it! It's the guard! That's your target.
Everything sounds how it would sound in real life. Well, except for the suppressors. Every game the suppressors sound really quiet, just like in this one. Obviously, they don't really sound like that. I'll let that slide like everyone else should, because let's be honest, really good suppressors in a game kind of make you feel like a ninja. I just love running through and shooting people in the face before they know that you're there. There's a lot of cool collectibles like enemy videos, phone conversations, digital recordings, and actual collectibles like little statues and stuff. There's also these event reconstructions where you can go back and see things played out in virtual reality that happened in the past, and all of these add to some pretty great world building. The skill system is awesome and really makes for great team building. I usually go support, but this time my build was all about suppressing fire. So when I would jump on and play with a group of people, I would use, the turrets, I would use the drones, I would use the gases that make people come out of cover so that my teammates could kill them. The 4 different factions in the game, the enemy types in each of those factions, the AI, the level layout, and more really force you to stay on your toes during combat. And more often than not, they'll force you to keep moving as well. Because if you reveal your position and you try to stay in that one area, most of the time they're going to root you out and smoke you. It keeps firefights consistently fun from the start of the game to the end of the game, because as you're leveling up, the bad guys level up too. But the bad guys aren't the only thing that you have to deal with. Sometimes there are environmental hazards, be they accidental or man-made, that force you to perform certain actions or take out certain areas of interest, both of which diminish the threat and allow you to move ahead in the missions. Say you do finish the game and you reach level 30, you can then start doing the strongholds. There were 3, but now there's actually a 4th that they added free for all players. The strongholds are a much bigger challenge than the normal missions, and they are a lot of fun. And the strongholds, of course, are where you get some of the sweetest loot in the game. The game drip feeds you so much stuff to keep you playing, and I'm not just talking about weapons. It doesn't feel cheap either, it felt like Diablo with that one more mission or let me check the next area feel. I'm not much of a games as a service guy, and I'm growing more and more tired of open world games, but this one balanced both of those aspects out better than most in the genre or just the market market in general. Anytime you play the game, any place you go, you will get great loot, be it from the bad guys that you kill or suitcases or boxes or whatever that you find on the ground. You just get rewarded for exploration and combat, and it's never stingy with it. It's always generous. And after playing Anthem, it's great to just be able to switch to that new gun on the fly while you're playing the mission. So that's the stuff that I really enjoyed about the Division 2, but let's find out about that Division 2 badness. Why is there no fucking flashlight in this game? Why are there no night vision goggles in this game? When you play in the outdoor areas, literally half of the game is in the dark. Now, when you go into the indoor areas, even more of the places are dark. So about 60% of your playtime in this game is in the dark. You know what specialization I want when I hit level 30? Flashlight guy. I want my special weapon to be a fucking flashlight. Thanks, Ubisoft. The story at best is underwhelming, but for me it really just felt kind of non-existent. Yeah, there are story elements there and the plot does progress forward, but it's not very often, and you don't really get an emotional connection to the characters or anything like that in the game. It's just people that are there and you help them, because I mean it basically boils down to this. Every time you meet somebody new, they say, hey, it's good to meet you. I need a bunch of stuff done. Can you get it done? Cool. And then when you go back and you say, hey, I got this stuff done, they say, guess what? I got more stuff for you to do. Thanks. And you basically just do that over and over until the game is finished. Connectivity was a constant issue for me, whether it was me just getting booted from the game or not being able to join matches when people requested backup. And of course, in an online game, connectivity is kind of important. The wave-based combat just gets repetitive after a while, especially when you have these bad guys that are super cheap, you know, and the fact that they are just laser point accurate shooters, no matter where they are, no matter what kind of cover they're behind, they can just shoot the dick off of a flea. Not only can they shoot like nobody's business, but they throw grenades like they're a Major League Baseball pitcher. And they're magicians too, because they spawn in places that are complete bullshit, like empty closets or the sides of caves where there was no entrance. Or, you know, right behind you after you've already cleared everyone out of that area. Hit detection in the game can be pretty inconsistent as well, and that's even with the big sexy weapons that you unlock once you get into your specializations. You might have your crosshair right on somebody's face, they don't move, you pull the trigger, and it misses. It doesn't make any sense. Especially given the fact that you'll run into bullet sponges. Even low-level people are bullet sponges in this game. Not as bad as the Division 1, but it's still pretty bad. But what's even more frustrating is the fact that a low-level grunt can kill you with just a couple hits. So you're telling me it takes me a full magazine to kill them, but they can hit me with a couple melee shots and I go down? And if you do see one of those grunts coming to you and maybe you're reloading and you go to jump out of cover, sometimes you get stuck in that cover anyway and then you get hit and you're dead. And it doesn't even have to be cover. You might be trying to run up some stairs or onto a sidewalk or something like that, and some invisible bump or object or whatever just keeps you where you're at. You can't go forward. You have to go around and find some little way up onto this tiny sidewalk or stairway, and it doesn't make any sense. Something else that you'll run into a lot besides the cover or the sidewalk or stair issues is when you go up or down a ladder or rope. When you get to the top or the bottom of that ladder or rope, a lot of times your movements will be stuck in reverse. So you hit forward and you go backwards, or you hit left and you go right. And that can get you killed pretty easily. There was one mission where I kept having to go down this rope into the bottom of this tunnel to fight these guys in the subway. And every time I got to the bottom, my movements would be reversed, and then they'd see me and then they'd start shooting me or throw a grenade, and then I'd get killed. I had to do that mission 3 times because of that bug. But one of the most frustrating bugs that you run into happens when you are in combat. And that's when you're firing your weapon at an enemy and the force feedback and sometimes the audio cuts out on the gun. You don't feel it, you don't hear it, so you look and you have to double check to see if your gun's still firing. And in a game that's all about shooting people, that shit should never ever happen. Sometimes while you're fighting the enemies, they'll warp from one place to another. So they might be trying to climb up something or jump down something and they can't. So the game just says, all right, come on down and I'll put you over here. So they'll go 10, 20, 30 feet from one place to another. You completely have to alter where you're aiming and everything else. And that sometimes opens you up to being hit from another direction while you're trying to refocus your sights onto that guy that just warped to the other side of the room or from the first floor to the second floor. Sometimes your skills will just fail to launch completely, or they won't do what they're supposed supposed to, and then you're stuck waiting 2 to 3 minutes for them to refresh so that you can use them again, and hopefully they will work this time. And I'll be honest, even with a bunch of stuff, in the end game, I didn't feel like going back and playing anymore after I finished World Tier 3. And that was probably because I had put around 70 hours or so into the game, plus I just wanted to get on to playing other games. So if you're a hardcore games as a service person or you love looter shooters, you'll probably not feel this, but I did. Now don't get me wrong, I love looter shooters. I love Borderlands 1 and 2, but of course Borderlands and Borderlands 2 never felt as repetitive as The Division 2 or Anthem does. Now there is something fun or cathartic about playing through these games. There's this certain gameplay loop that they have, and it can feel comfortable, and it's nice to just sit down and not think and just go through them a couple times, say after a hard day's work. But you will get tired of that gameplay loop pretty quick, and that's what happened here. There were a lot more glitches and issues with the game that I can't really remember off the top of my head because there were so many. As a whole, these negative elements did drag the game down a bit. And because I'm not a games as a service guy, I do not want to sit down and play the same game for hundreds of hours, at least an online game that can get pretty repetitive. I don't mind putting a few hundred hours into a really good RPG or something like that, not these online looter shooter, games as a service model games. That being said though, I did get around 50 solid hours of gameplay where I never got bored and there was a lot of stuff to do and see. And the last 20 hours or so that I put into the game were a bit of a grind, but that was the point. I wanted to see what the end game was like and all that kind of stuff that people are always talking about. So the game does have its issues, it does have its glitches, it does have microtransactions, and a lot of the stuff that people are complaining about now. But it is a solid game that was actually pretty fun. All that being said, what was my score? Drum roll please. 7 out of 10.